Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. I'm Derek Gunn. This is Draft Takes. It is brought to you by IBEW Local 98. Mark Lynch, the business manager. Once again, shout out to everybody who's been hitting that like button. Keep smashing it and watching us each and every day of our 2022 NFL draft coverage. Of course, the Eagles have made some spectacular picks. And of course, as we know about Howie Roseman, we really don't know about Howie Roseman. But if you guys watched our draft show on Friday night, I was with Rob Ellis, Mike Quick, and one of my all-time favorite Eagles, this man right here, Seth Joyner. And by the way, follow Seth on his own Seth Joyner podcast, a tremendous podcast I've been blessed enough to be on several times over the last couple of years. You heard Seth and I talking about the linebacking position, why he liked the bigger backer, why I was in love with the kid the Eagles finally drafted in the third round, Nakobe Dean. And Seth, as I bring you in, I'm sitting here shocked that Dean fell to the third round. And then we find out supposedly he has this pec injury, but I'm a little confused because Dean basically said he was never told that he needed surgery on this shoulder or this pec injury. And all of a sudden, all these teams shied away from him. But we also know, Seth, that a lot of times misinformation is put out there about players for a reason. And unfortunately, it cost this young man a lot of money.
Yeah, I feel really bad for this kid. You move from a projected top 15 pick with the opportunity, to, make substantially more money than he's now going to be making as the 83rd pick in the third round. All because, some misinformation was put out there about this kid on draft day. And the thing that perplexes me the most, now don't get me wrong, I am ecstatic that the Eagles, have this kid on their roster because he's going to make the whole linebacking core much better. And I believe, within the next 2 to 3 years, he's going to be the ultimate leader of this defense. I felt that, that's one of the intangibles that he brought. And I was excited, when I saw that the Eagles were able to snatch him up. But, something needs to be done about this. I mean, I just don't understand. How do you go through the combine process, your pro day process, individual meetings with other teams and things like that, and then something so erroneous as, what was put out about him could be put out on draft day, and it affects this kid. He moves from day one in the first round, sitting in the green room by himself, to actually being picked in the third round, the early 83rd pick overall. There's just something wrong with this, man.
Well, not only that, but now Howie Roseman has come out and said they expect him to be there for the rookie camp and for the OTAs and the mini camp, which leads us to breathe. And Howie also said he is not scheduled for any surgery. So I don't understand. I really, it's just mind-boggling that. Okay, we see players, when rumors get out like this, we see players drop from a possible top 10 candidate down to the low 20s, maybe even into the late 30s, or at the very least, high to mid second round. But for him to drop all the way out of the first 2 rounds of the draft, when he was considered one of the top 2 linebackers in all of football in 2022 coming into this draft, I mean, he talks about how it was crazy, how it upset his mother and other family members and things like that. Well, in this case, all he can do now is go out there and play with that proverbial chip on his shoulder and really prove a lot of people wrong in this case.
Well, believe me, he's the type of player that has that mentality, and he will come in with a chip on his shoulder. That bodes well, for the Philadelphia Eagles. But again, when you lose money like this in the first round, you don't make it up because, people say, well, his next contract. Well, his next contract has nothing to do with the money that he's able to garner now. The money that he lost from round 1 to round 3, that money he'll never be able to, to recoup. And it's just wrong. I mean, you've got all of these mock drafts and all of these so-called gurus that project where a guy should be. And then I hear these guys on draft night sometimes, oh, I had him projected as a third round. I think it was a little bit of a reach for them, to go up and get this guy. Well, you hear that rhetoric from the time the Super Bowl ends all the way up, to the draft, where these guys are making these assumptions and making these assertions. Yeah. And you would think that organizations would be smart enough to do their homework and already know. But unfortunately, there's a lot of organizations that are actually influenced by some of the things that these gurus say and some of the things that they talk about. But the thing that perplexes me the most about this is that every one of these teams had the opportunity to do their homework on this kid. And you can't tell me some of there's linebackers that was taken before him that aren't even on his level. And you mean to tell me that he slid that much, that he fell that far behind, understanding who he is and what he can do? I hope he's got a chip on both shoulders, and I hope he comes in and proves everyone wrong about this nonsense. And to your point, if Howie Roseman is coming in and saying, "Hey, there's no issues," then there's no issues. If the kid came out and said, in his interview, "Hey, there's no issues. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get here and get to work," then there are no issues. But there's a bad actor somewhere that started a rumor that cost this kid an exorbitant amount of money. And I feel bad for him, but I'm ecstatic for the Philadelphia Eagles that they've got this kid, on their roster, because he's going to make the entire defense better just by the level of play that he's going to bring to this football team.
When you and I were discussing linebackers on our draft take special, we went in detail about this young man. And I said, well, first of all, we now know that the small linebacker can survive and thrive in the National Football League. He's 5'11", like 229. I compared him to Devin White, Devin Bush, and Eric Kendrick of the Minnesota Vikings. When you look at him, what jumps out at you about his style of play and the program, obviously, he played for?
Right. Well, listen, he's a physical player at 228, and listen, he had one of the best defensive lines in all of college football. He's now being paired back up with Jordan Davis, who the Eagles took in the first round. He's got Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave in front of him, and a host of other guys at the defensive end and rush and edge rusher position that's going to allow him to do what he does best. This kid runs to the football and he makes plays. He's going to have enough size in front of him, and they're going to be able to keep him clean, especially when they get in their 5-man fronts. Even if they go 5-man, even if they still want to go nickel, if they go 5-man and 5 defensive backs and you only keep one linebacker on the field, well, you can go with your eagle or your bear look, go 5-man, cover the 3 down inside with 2 guys kicked out on the outside, and you just let him run from C gap to C gap and just knock snot from people, because you're not going to be able to move our 3 guys in the middle. They're going to eat up the center and the 2 guards, and all he's got to do is flow from C gap to outside on both sides and make plays. When you look at him at Georgia, that's what he did. They had enough girth and enough size on that defensive line. You had to double Jordan Davis darn near on every single play. Wyatt was a force because he was really their move guy. But when you looked at Nakobe, Nakobe was just back there making plays, man. And I think he's stepping into a similar situation here. That's the physical part of it. D, you know what I like about this kid the most? I mean, I know you watched the national championship game and how he got on his other linebacker mate, about not being in the right place, taking the wrong step and getting in his way. The kid is a natural born leader. And when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles defense, I talked about it in our draft show the other night. I don't think the Eagles have had great leadership on the defensive side of the ball since Malcolm Jenkins and Chris Long left this football team. And I think when you're drafting, you have to incorporate leadership skills into some of the guys that you draft, because you need leaders on that side of the ball. BG is a vocal guy. He's going to lead coming off a major injury. But you got to believe that he's going to be back 100%. He's going to be a voice. He's going to be able to lead. Nakobe Dean is going to have to lead by example until, he gets through this rite of passage, if you will, as a young player, and then step into being, a vocal leader, because you can only lead if you're leading by example first. Then
That's
you
right.
can lead vocally. I think he does both, and I think he's a major plus, not only because of the type of football player he's going to be for this organization, but the potential leadership the potential leadership skills that this young kid possesses.
Okay, now I agree with you 100%. But how long does a rookie have to know his place before he can be that vocal leader, somebody who can get in somebody's face? They always talk about you have to pay your dues, and then when it comes to the NFL, a lot of veterans are not going to let a rookie check them in a lot of cases. So, what does it take for him to reach that level that he can become that vocal guy that he was at Georgia?
Performance,
Okay.
and then becoming in production, performance, and then becoming, one of the focal points in the defense. And he has the potential to do all of those things. You can only lead to the level that you perform and you produce. When you start opening your mouth and you're not doing anything, now you create factions in the, in the unit, because guys are going to talk. Man, listen, he's over there running his mouth, and he missed, he got blown up on the last play. He missed 3 tackles. He dropped an interception. But when you're performing and you're producing, it produces this thing where guys want to follow you, because they want to perform like you're performing. So what they're doing is they're looking at what you do. They're looking at your preparation. They're looking at, your effort. They're looking at your production. And, they're like, well, if this guy's getting it done, I got to step up. Now, for a young guy, it's hard, but all you got to do is look in Dallas and look at what Michael Parsons did last year. And in my opinion, he became a leader right away with double-digit sacks, and the amount of plays that he made and the level of play, how he raised the level of competition and play on that team. He became an instant, leader on that team by production. Now I don't know how vocal he was, but you can see that Nakobe Dean has that vocal side to him. Now he's got to come in and prove to his teammates, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that he can be that same player. And the minute he starts producing, and the minute that he starts being productive, he's going to have a voice on that football team, to step up and be able to say things with people, believing in it, honoring it, and following him.
You being not just the former NFL linebacker, but one of the greatest linebackers in Eagles history, you have to be salivating at the Eagles linebacking situation right now, a position that we all have criticized for years, because now you have Hassan Reddick, who can put his hand down in the dirt or stand up. You have Kazir White, who they picked up as well. And now this kid here. The games that Jonathan Gannon can play, not just with the linebacking, but now with his front seven, with Jordan Davis, that rotation at D tackle, your edge rushers, there's no excuse for Jonathan Gannon for not being a more of an aggressive style defense compared to what we saw in 2021.
Well, the only thing I can think of that's going to be a hindrance to him, is his back end, because the Eagles didn't do much, at the safety position where they need help. They've only got, I think, one safety, under contract right now. And they need a cornerback to replace Steven Nelson on the outside. I think that those situations last year and the fact that you had linebackers that they felt like they couldn't blitz. So anytime they wanted to bring an extra guy, they just went to their 5-man line. But that gives offenses an instant, adjustment, because they know what it is. To be able to disguise what you do in your 4-2 fronts with your 4 down and your two linebackers, to be able to bring a Nakobe Dean, to be able to go 5-man and then slide Hassan Reddick back off the ball and bring him as a blitzer. Jonathan Gannon's got to get creative. I didn't see a whole lot of creativity, in what they did last year. They were pretty vanilla. I think that they tried to disguise a lot of things, which got them in trouble coverage-wise from time to time. But when they needed to bring pressure, he was extremely reluctant to bring pressure, had everybody in Philadelphia screaming about it. And there was never really any explanation about why they weren't more aggressive. It's my opinion that they felt like they didn't have the linebackers, when you brought an extra guy, they could win and get home. They didn't have a guy that they could trust. That situation has been resolved, not only with Nakobe Dean, not only with Hassan Reddick, but also with Kazir White. And if
Yes.
Davion Taylor can stay healthy,
Yes.
he's got oodles of potential in this pool of linebackers to be highly competitive for playing time. And really, that's what you need, because what you're going to get when you got all of these guys, everybody's jockeying for playing time. And in the NFL now, it's not like when I played. I never came off the field unless I was injured. I didn't come off because I was tired and I need some Gatorade, or I need a blow, or I needed some oxygen. We played every down. These guys are only going to play 60 to 65% of the plays, which means that Davion Taylor, Kazir White, Sean Bradley is a major year for him. These guys they're going to be vying for that other 30 to 35% playing time that's going to be out there. So teams now, they don't care about the fact that, oh, he's a backup. You got to be ready to play. TJ Edwards, we forgot to talk about him. He stepped into a starting role, last year. He's the guy that's the competition level is going to be palpable, at the linebacker position this year. And that's what you need, because now the cream is going to rise to the top, and you're going to get the best player that you got, the best two on the roster that's going to get the lion's share of the plays.
Hey, Seth, there's no question the back end of the defense is still a major cause for concern, but we have seen year in and year out, when teams have a weak link on the back end, if that front seven is utilized properly, it can cover up a lot of the deficiencies on the back end. You agree? I
agree wholeheartedly, because people don't realize the coverage and the pressure up front. The defensive backs and the defensive linemen, they are so intricately tied together. Because if you're not getting to the quarterback, those guys can only cover for so long. But if those guys are covering their behind off, you hear coverage sacks, things like that sometimes. Those guys can help the front. The front can help them by getting pressure, as well. The only reservation I have is that Jonathan Gannon has the propensity to play soft a lot with his cornerbacks and with his slot corner. Now, the good quarterbacks, they're going to pre-snap read it. They're going to see the cornerbacks off 7 to 8 yards, and it's going to take the 5-yard speed out. Or they're going to take the hitch right now and hope they can make the guy miss, and break a big one. If you don't start getting your cornerbacks up where they're challenging wide receivers at the line of scrimmage, you negate your ability to have this prolific defensive line to get there. I'm trying to remember what game it was they were complaining how fast the opposing team was getting the ball out. Well, if you're going to play off, and the other team knows that you've got, great pass rushes, a great defensive line, then the quarterback's not going to sit there and hold the ball. They're just going to take what the defense is giving them. If that slants on the backside, you got a 3-by-1, and on the one side, that guy's playing off and outside. That's a pitch and catch that, junior college quarterbacks can make. So you got to get up, you got to get back, you got to move around, you got to get in, you got to get out. You got to figure out a way to throw off the good quarterbacks. Now, it's not going to be a problem against the quarterbacks that aren't that good, but the elite level quarterbacks, what they're going to do is they're going to look up and they're going to look outside and they're going to give a little head nod, and that's going to tell that wide receiver, okay, you got to speed out, you got to slant, you got a quick hitch. I'm just going to get it out there, get it in your hand, hope you can go, make a play. But you got to confuse quarterbacks. You can't just be stagnant in what you do. You got to disguise what you're doing. You got to move safeties around. You got to, move your cornerbacks around. You even got to put your cornerbacks inside sometime and tell them to play inside technique and challenge, quarterbacks to make those great throws on the outside, the outside fourth of the field, if you will, outside the numbers.
When you look at this Eagles draft overall, let's start with Jordan Davis real quick. How much did you like that pick? Were you still feeling they should have gone in another direction? They gave up a couple of high draft pick commodities to get this young man, but I tell you what, this man is like a 18-wheeler on 2 legs.
Well, I like the draft. I like the draft pick. My only reservation with Jordan Davis will be how much of a pass rusher he can be. He gives them, first of all, he gives them a lot of flexibility within their defense, because, with Hassan Reddick, you can go 5-man, you can go eagle front, you can go a 30 front, where you're actually putting Jordan Davis on the nose, right on the center's head, and then you can kick Hargrave and Cox out to 3 techniques. There's a lot that you can do. You can morph from 5-man, to from a 5-man look to a 4-man look and rotate Hassan Reddick back off the ball and send him, on a blitz. You can drop him into coverage. There's a lot of different things that Jonathan Gannon can do because of Jordan Davis. My only reservation about Jordan Davis is, can we get him down to 315 to 320? And can we work on his pass rush skills where we can make him as a proficient a pass rusher as he is a run stopper? Because if he can't rush the passer, then in long yardage situations and third down situations, you're going to have to take him off the field.
What about the AJ?
That's a heavy price to pay, D, to move from 15 to 13 and give up those 3 draft picks to do so for a guy that's only a 2-down player.
Well, I mean, if you look at the way Jonathan Gannon likes to use his D linemen, he likes to rotate them. The kid Jordan Davis played 38% of the snaps when he was at Georgia. I can't imagine him playing any more than that when you consider you have 2 high-priced Pro Bowlers playing in front of him, which is not a bad thing in his initial year because he's learning from 2 of the best at the position.
I just think for what you gave up for him and things of that nature, I think he's got to – listen, he's a behemoth, man, 6'6", 341 pounds. You can't single block him. Even right now as a rookie, you cannot single block this kid, and he eats up double teams, and he has a real good knack for getting skinny and getting between double teams, even when guys are trying to double and then work up second level. He's got a great feel for being able to defeat that. Listen, they still got Milton Williams. Milton Williams to me is a guy that's very versatile. You can play him in a 3 technique, or you can kick him out and play him at defensive end, from time to time where you need to. So they're not going to have a problem from the standpoint of, bodies. But my biggest issue, if you're going to move up to 13 to take a guy like this, you're not looking to have this guy only play 30% of the plays. Yeah, I would prefer to see him more in the 40 to 45%, range because of what he brings. On early downs, he's going to be able to, dare teams to run the football. But like I said, once you get the third down situations, or you get in the second long situations, are you running him off the field and bringing somebody in? And maybe, at Georgia, he was playing at 250, 350, 355. Okay. Maybe that's too heavy for him. Maybe they realize that way he can only give you X amount of plays a game. Okay. So now you're playing on a professional level. You're getting paid to play. You're getting paid to play as many plays as we can get out of you to be as productive. Because when we move up to 13, we're saying that, this guy is an integral part of what we're doing. So how do you get him in shape? How do you get his weight down where he can give you 40 to 45% of the snaps game in and game out, even as a rookie?
What about the move to get A.J. Brown from the Tennessee Titans? Instead of going out and getting an unproven commodity in the college ranks, they go out and get a guy who's done it at a high level for 3 years now.
Well, listen, I'll tell you this. I think that, the Eagles basically have drafted a wide receiver in the first round the last 4 years. Okay. Right. With that move, that's really what it is, But I love the move because, I said at the end of last year when we talked about, what the Eagles needed going into, the offseason, I felt like they needed a veteran wide receiver. They needed a guy who's already done it, a guy that can come in and lead these young guys and help them to realize their potential. That's nothing against the wide receivers coach, but there's just something about having a guy who's already been established, a guy who's been to a Pro Bowl, a guy who's had 1,000-yard seasons, a guy who's played, in playoff games, a guy that can mentor these young guys on what to do and how to become better professionals. And guess what? You gave him the $100 million for 4-year extension, but at the end of the day, that's the going rate. That's the going rate. Devontae Adams is averaging what, $30 million a year?
Almost, yes.
Some of the other guys you're looking at, they're right around 25. So you're getting fair market value for a guy that's 24 years old He's played 3 years in the NFL. His best years and his peak years, in my opinion, is ahead of him. And yeah, you use a second, a 1A, a 1B draft pick, I should say, to acquire him, for for your 18th pick, to swap from 18 down to 15, I think it was.
Yep.
And then you turn around and you give away some later round draft picks, that are shots in the dark anyway. Listen, Howie was on fire Thursday night, as far as I'm concerned.
And in the second round, the Eagles decided to take possibly the heir apparent to Jason Kelce, who's been talking about retiring for the last 3 years now. He comes back in a 1-year deal. You like the move that they made to get this Cameron Jurgens, this center out of Nebraska?
Well, I said, at the end of the year, that offensive line depth was something that the Eagles needed to address. And
right.
I didn't really talk about it a lot, as we got closer to the draft, but I thought, that one of those 3 picks, had they kept the 3 picks, that one of those picks was certainly going to be an offensive lineman. Listen, Jason Kelce, what is he going to, his 10th year? I'm not sure. I think 10th or 11th year. I hope and pray that, his body is healing up and he's rejuvenated and he's got another 2 or 3 years left in him. I believe that, that he's now beginning to see the moves that Howie is making and that the organization is making, and that just maybe there's one more Super Bowl, on the horizon for him, and maybe he'll hang around and stay a little longer. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the video, but when he found out that the Eagles made that trade for A.J. Brown, I mean, you should have seen his reaction. That tells me that's a guy that's excited about the prospect of getting back into the playoffs, winning and moving through the playoffs, and potentially having, another Super Bowl championship on his Hall of Fame resume when it comes time for him to call it a day. But yeah, it's a good move. I'd be curious to see. I don't know enough about, the kid that they drafted out of Nebraska. I don't know enough about him to know whether he's versatile enough to be interchangeable, kind of like Landon Dickerson was. Listen, they brought Landon Dickerson in to be the heir apparent. Then they put him at guard and found out, that he could play guard and center. Now I think he's probably entrenched there. And from what I understand, Jason Kelce kind of, advised and helped in this decision-making on who that center was that they were going to go after. When you watch him on film, he's a bigger version of Jason. He can, when you leave him uncovered, he can pull and get out on screens like Jason Kelce does, but he's over 300 pounds. I think he's something like 310 or 315, somewhere in there, but he can move and he can run like Jason does. So I think the Eagles are in good position there. My only concern is right guard. Are we gonna go into this year with Nate Herbig being the guy, or are we gonna maybe slide this Jurgens kid over from center for a year and play him at right guard?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah, and then if Jason Kelce decides to continue to play, guess what? We got a solidified line with guys that are getting a whole bunch of experience, and then you got options. When Jason Kelce does decide to call it a day, because you can either slide Dickerson in the center, you can sign Jurgens in the center, and then you can go and find you another veteran guard and not miss a beat, because these guys are going to get the experience of being starters probably this entire year.
If you want to learn the game of football, if you want to understand the intricacies of football, this man right here is the man you need to listen to, and you can each and every week on his Seth Joyner podcast. I cannot thank you enough, my friend, for taking some time to talk to us here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel on this edition of Draft Takes, man. I call you at the last minute, and most of the time, like you did right now, you answer the call. So I can't thank you enough for that.
Come on, man. If you was if you was on the moon and you called me and said you needed me, man, I'd be on the next rocket up there. I'd call Elon Musk. I'd be up there, man.
I know you would, man. So stay tuned, because you never know when D-Gun's going to call you out of the clear blue again.
Just as long as you don't call me off the course, you good.
I know that's right. Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning in for this edition of Draft Takes here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Hey, continue to smash that like button and keep subscribing to the channel as well. We thank you. Thousands of people have been following us since the 2022 NFL Draft kicked off, and we thank you for participating for that. Don't forget also, Monday through Friday from noon to 3 every day, it is myself with Barrett Brooks and Rob Ellis as we take you through Sports Take, as we talk about all the topics around this region in the Philadelphia sports scene. And hey, also make your summer plans right now at Ocean Casinos Resort, the exclusive provider for all JAKIB Media content. Go for the beach, go for the win. So until next time, I'm Derek Gunn. This is Draft Takes. Thanks for watching.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.